Good evening, everybody. I hope you're having a good time. So, I'm not the biggest movie person. I don't usually go to watch a lot of movies personally. The only time I do is usually with friends, and maybe I watch like two or three movies in a movie theater every year. But the last couple of days, I decided to kind of go back and rewatch the American Godzilla, not like the original 2001, but everything from 2014 to recent. Now, the reason I did that was because I was sort of in this weird Godzilla mood. And I was trying to also compare those movies to Godzilla Minus and Godzilla Shin Godzilla. Now, I will be eventually watching those movies, and there will be a bit of a follow up video talking about the American Godzilla and, the two Japanese one. But really, it's not. I'm not going to really talk about Shin Godzilla. I want to talk more about Godzilla Minus One and the American Godzilla because I think those are more interesting, right? So, again, as I said, I watched the 4 movies of the American Godzilla. So, 2014 one, King of the Monster, Godzilla vs. Kong, and Godzilla X King Kong, was it the Empire of Ice or Ice Empire? I can't remember. And I would say that I generally do like those movies. I'm a really big Godzilla fan. I've been watching Godzilla as the early 2000s, right? I watched the original Godzilla from the 1950s, the black and white, and its sequel. I remember watching even things like Godzilla and Mothra. I also remember watching those subsequent, the remake version of those ones, not really remakes, but the later versions, right? I remember just sitting there as a kid, in New York City with my family at the time and just watching Godzilla or going to the local, where I lived in the time in New York, right? We didn't have a blockbuster. We just had whatever's around. So we just went in there and just rented Godzilla movies all the time. And when the 2000 version of Godzilla movies came out, I watched those with my cousin or on like bootleg cable services and enjoyed them. Now, I think they will do sort of a retrospective on those versions of Godzilla, but not for a long time. But now back to the main point of the video. And I would say that Godzilla 2014, I think, can be compared to Godzilla Minus. Now, the reason I say that is Godzilla Minus is a superior movie in every way. I think it does a good job balancing the human character. It gives a lot of reverence to Godzilla. It gives you just a lot of time to show the monster in action in its purest form. And I think it has probably one of the best conclusions to any Godzilla movie we have seen in a long time. Godzilla 2014 is a good runner-up to an American version of Godzilla that is a good comparison to the Japanese Godzilla movies. And I feel that because I think it does somewhat of a good job with its human character. Do I do think that it puts too much focus on them, right? I do think that the natural disaster stuff, it does well, but I also think like they could have easily picked an actual American disaster that happened around that time and use that the basis of Godzilla. I do find the monster fight for those movies to be good, but I also could have felt that they could have just not done that and just focus on Godzilla as just a natural disaster movie. And I think it still would have worked, but given at the time that Marvel was like really big, it's before like Endgames and all that, I think they just had no choice but to throw in a fight scene, right? Because it's just what it was back then, right? And I also felt that the movie was a little too dark. Not dark that it was like, oh, it was gloom and all that, doom and gloom. More like the lighting for it was just so hard to watch. Especially when you're watching the monster fight. It's why I think later Godzilla movies focus a lot of the fights in the day, except maybe like Godzilla vs. Kong where that was set at night, that was in Hong Kong, but they balanced that out with a lot of the neon light and they made it a lot more lighter, and you're still able to see the monster fight. I just felt that in Godzilla 2014, it was a little too dark. But even with those flaws, I still think the movie holds up pretty well. You know, just the times you do see Godzilla, it's just exciting to watch him, right? And when I first watched the movie in theaters with my friend after high school, I was extremely excited. It was the first time where we actually got a good Godzilla American version of it in theaters, and you can show your friend this, and they can be excited with you. And I was extremely happy because of it. It's probably one of my happiest of my last of my high school days. And I feel like the later Godzilla movies really do respect the whole monster fight of Godzilla, and they kind of do a good job in the other movies with less focus on the human characters. But I'm not saying Godzilla movies can't do human characters well. Look at Godzilla Minus One, right? And I'm gonna go back and talk about Godzilla Minus One, or at least do a comparison. Again, I will do a follow-up video after what Godzilla Minus One, and I'm probably going to be extremely biased, but I think a lot of people are going to agree with me regardless. But I do think that the later Godzilla American movies do a good job in respecting the material that is Godzilla, especially the fights. With King of the Monster, we saw King Ghidorah, and we saw all other monsters like Rodan, Mothra. It was just a beautiful movie of sloppy fighting scenes, and it was great, and I loved it. Felt that the human stuff, okay, it was just sort of a drive. It was something for us to relate, but I think we just didn't care. I think if they just focused on the movie monster fight, I think people would have been more happier. What they kind of did, right, in later Godzilla movies, right, with Godzilla versus King Kong, they more or less put less time on the monsters and focus more time. No, not less time on the monster. They focus less time on the humans, and they focus more on the monster and kind of humanizing, especially through King Kong. Now, before people ask, am I going to talk about Kong Skull Island? I think I will, or really, I'm just gonna mention it really fast here. It's a good movie. I think it's one of the best Kong movie. Is no Peter Jackson movie, but I think that would be an interesting comparison video on the two movies. But overall, I think that movie is great. Samuel Jackson is great. Them putting it in Vietnam, which is a good choice. Go watch it. It's probably one of the best modern version of Kong you're ever gonna get. Back to Godzilla versus King Kong, and really how they just respect what they're doing, right? And they know that the audience there is to watch the monster fight. We see Kong in the Hall of Earth, and one of the things before I forget, I know many people may think that the whole Hall of Earth stuff is crazy. You gotta remember, a lot of Godzilla movies, the Japanese ones or the original stuff, are all extremely wacky. Anybody that says that them going to Hollow Earth is just extremely unserious don't understand that at some point with the Godzilla movies, they just go off the handle. They go off the wall. Like, literally, look at Mothra. She has these two small little guardians. They literally bring in reptilian lizards, and I think at some point they had like a nuclear warhead cult. Or stuff like that. And I think anybody who take the movie too serious, like, not saying that you can't take Godzilla serious. You can take it serious, but at some point, the wackiness is just what makes it so great to watch. And I think them introducing Hollow Earth, and then obviously in the latest Godzilla movie, them introducing a hidden civilization, it all fits perfectly into the movie. And how there's this evil Monkey King villain with this ice dragon, it all just works great. And I think that's what makes Godzilla in these movies so beautiful and so great. Is that it's about, at some point, you start taking it serious like a natural disaster, and you just go off the end with the most wildest stuff, with the most wildest plot, with some of the most wildest fight. The fact that Mechagodzilla was sort of a reincarnation of King Ghidorah, I think that was brilliant. I think that was like the most like, oh, that's a good way to introduce him. Oh, if they really wanted to down the line, they could easily bring Mecha Ghidorah. And when we compare this to Godzilla minus, obviously Godzilla minus one is a superior movie to all of them. But I think the American Godzilla movie do a great job in respecting the material they are given, and they just show that Godzilla could be a serious creature, and it could also be a wacky creature that goes on this misadventure with a giant monkey and fighting all this weird stuff. And when you compare those movies to the later Godzilla movie, it just fits in perfectly fine. And I think, and I hope that we get more movies. I would at least with like one or two movies where we have both characters go on a solo adventure. I would like them to introduce Mecha King Kong. That would be beautiful. I would like them to introduce. I know I heard rumors of them introducing Destroyer, which is beautiful. I also would like them to introduce Space Godzilla. That's a lot of things they can do, and I hope that we get more. And I hope that we get a sequel to Godzilla minus one. And I know this whole video was meant to do a comparison, but I think it's sort of hard because Godzilla minus one, and I know I'm repeating myself, it's just a beautifully done movie. And when I do go back and I do a follow-up video, I think I'm just gonna guess more. Now the question is, am I really gonna watch Shin Godzilla? I watched it and I just felt that it wasn't really my thing. I just felt like what Shin Godzilla was trying to do, mind you, it was written by Ano, so take that as it is. Um, you know, you know, yeah, it's just not my thing. It's a good movie, but I just felt that some things were just a little too much, and I felt that what it was trying to do, Godzilla minus one did a better job. Maybe that's a hot take. Maybe a lot of people do agree with me. Again, I'm not saying Shin Godzilla is a bad movie. I think it is a good movie. I just think that what it was trying to do just didn't work for me. But it's been a while since I see it, so maybe I could be wrong. But until then, yo, have a good one and be safe and God bless.